Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another update to our PHP MVC framework we created from scratch. So if this is the first video you are seeing in this series, please take a look at my playlists and get this one that says PHP Framework from scratch, so you can see all the videos in the series. So we start with creating this from scratch. We made one update, and then we made a social website, a simple social website using the same framework. And then we made an update, a second one, a third one. And hopefully this will be our final update before we start creating all kinds of websites using this framework, so that you see, practice makes perfect, as they say, so we can know how to use it in almost every situation. All right, so getting back to this now. You can download the framework itself in the link in the description, or from the links in the description from the other videos here, especially the previous video here. So I've loaded it here, of course, and I have my server running, so I can run my PHP here. All right, so what are we going to talk about in here is two things: image cropping and migrations. So migrations have to do with creating tables. So instead of us going to phpMyAdmin to make the tables, we're going to use this command line tool we created in the previous video, Thunder PHP here, and that should create some tables for us. So we create a migration file, and then we put all the tables we want. We name them, we put all the columns that we need there, and then we save. That way, the database structure goes with the application itself. Just in case we lose the database for any reason, then we don't have to guess how the database used to look like, or what was its structure. We just need to run the migration file to recreate all the tables in our database. That's what the migrations thing is good for. So yeah, very useful, because I've had situations in the past where I created an application and for some reason the computer crashed and they got rid of the database file, because it stays with phpMyAdmin here, within here. So if you lose the thing here, you lose everything. It's better if there's a migration file within your project, so you can just recreate the table in an instant. So let's go to image cropping. So why is image cropping important? Well, it's not enough to resize images. We have this model image in here that resizes images, which is good, but there are times when you need to just crop the images, because, for example, let's say you have an image that's well resized. Maybe originally it was 2000 by 3000 pixels, and then you resized it to, let's say, 1000 by 1500 pixels, something like this. This is good. At least you don't reduce it so much to maintain quality. But what if when you're loading it on the page, there's only a space of 100 by 150 pixels that it needs to be shown? So what will happen is you're going to have to resize the image, which is simple enough in HTML, because all you need to do is specify the width and the height. But the problem is you're resizing this huge image into this section, when in actual case this image could be, let's say, 200 KBs of data, right? When in actual case, if what you really needed was a 100 to 150 pixel image, you could reduce it probably to something like 50 KBs, which increases your load times. At least you can load your image faster than having to load these images. Because if you have like 20 or 30 of these images, it really adds up in the end. Whereas if you have 10 of these, that's 2 megabytes. If you have 10 of these, that's still half a megabyte. So it does count in the end. So it's better to actually crop the images even after resizing them, to make sure that, because in certain cases, let's say you're showing thumbnails, you may even need a space as small as 50 by 60, like that, and when the actual original image is this resolution. So this is such a waste of data as you're downloading from the internet. So we're going to do cropping to to avoid such things. So let's start with the image cropping first, and then we're going to go to the migration section. So in order to do the image cropping, of course, we're going to use our model. This one is the image model here. So already we have a resize function in here, which is working quite well. Now the thing is, the cropping and resizing are very, very similar. So most of this stuff is exactly the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this function over here. So I'm going to do Shift Control D like that. So we have two functions over here, which is awesome. Now my mouse ball here is acting up. Okay, there we go. So let's do a crop here. Now when cropping, there are times, most of the time you may want to crop as a square image, but there are times maybe you want to create a cover image instead, which doesn't always, it's not always a square image. So we need to be able to select width, specific width and height for our cropped image. So here I'm going to change this to max width and then put one more for max height, like so. So let's change that to a height. Great. So at least now we have two numbers there. Those are just default values. Okay, great. So when we load in the crop thingy, now it's always better to resize an image before you crop it. And there's a simple reason for this. Let me give an example here. Now let's imagine we want to crop an image, right? And this image has a resolution of, let's say, 5000 by 3000. Okay, so 5000 there. I can't type very well with my mouse here. By 3000. Okay. Now, what if I want to crop this image to 50 by 30 pixels, right? 50 by 30. Now the problem with this, if I just go ahead and crop in here, the box that I'm going to remove from here will be as small as a dot here, because that's really 50 by 30 if you compare 5000 to 3000. So this is not going to fly very nicely. What we want when cropping, let's say, a square image in this instance is we want to get this whole thing like here to make it a square, like so, right? Crop that in the middle and then reduce it to 50 by 30, right? Because of course, if we get all of this, this side will be 3000 pixels, which means we want to really reduce that to what we want, which is 50 by 30. So you have to grab all of that and then reduce it to 50 by 30 in that way. Okay, so this is great. We can do it this way. So this is why we have to resize the image. It's better we resize the image to something closer to this and then crop it, right? That way we get most of the image in what we want. So this is why we have to resize our image first. Now, in order to resize our image, we have the resize function here. It needs to know how far we have to go with our resizing. What's the maximum allowed size? Here we're reducing to 700 pixels in this case. But in this case, we have to depend on what is being cropped over here. Okay, so depending on which one of these is large, at least we need to know what we are doing here. So in order to do that, we have to know the original width and height of an image. Now in this case, we do know when we grab these guys here at this point. Now the problem is, to use image SX, we have to use an image resource, which means we need this part at the top to have already happened for us to determine this. Now, what I want to do is we need to repeat ourselves here. So if file exists, this is all nice. So let's copy this switch statement here, this entire switch statement and this part here, and duplicate it. So duplicate like so. Okay, so here I just want to grab the source width and height just for the sake of resizing. And then once I resize that new image, then I can load it back again as an image resource. Okay, So I could have used another function that can grab the width and height of an image, but this one is more thorough, so I'd rather use these guys, because the other ones, there's one called exif get data or something. This one, read exif data or exif read data. The problem with these functions is that they don't run certain image formats like WebP, for example. So we're going to stick to this. Unfortunately, we have to repeat ourselves here, so this is fine, it's okay. So here we're just grabbing the width and the height. That's why we're doing all of this here, just to grab the width and the height of the image and then do something with that. So here I'm going to check, first of all, is the source width bigger than the source height? Actually, there are four, I don't know if it's 4 cases that we need to look for or many more. We need to check first the max width and max height. In any case, what I want to do here is this. Let me create another function here that I can work with, so I don't have to deal with the crop function directly. So let's put a public function here, and let's call it get thumbnail, like that. So get thumbnail, and we need the file name, we need the max width, just like the other one, and we're gonna leave that at 700, and then max height. Okay, so great, that's looking good. Then I just want to put return file name here, so that if all fails, at least the file name will be returned of the original. And then if we need file exists here, actually we don't need to check for this really. We can just do a resize, right? So here I'm going to do this, because this is in the same class. We have a resize function in there, and we're just going to throw in the file name and comma. Now here I want to actually not resize, crop. We want to crop these guys. So what I want to do is crop to, let's say, 400 by 400, something like so. Now cropping is a little complex here. Now before I crop, because this is going to replace the original image, so what I'm going to do first of all, let's actually check if the file exists. So if the file exists, file name, like so, then we do our thing. First of all, let's make a copy of the original image, because we don't really want to crop the original. We want to leave it there. We just want to make a thumbnail. So let me move that there. So we need to create what destination is, right? So destination is going to be equal to a string replacement for the file name. Now what I want is, first of all, to grab the file extension so I can extend it, so I can see what's going on. So file extension is going to be equal to, let's do a preg replace, or let's do explode instead. I'm going to do explode with a dot and the file name. So the file extension is usually at the end, so there's a dot and then the file extension. So we're creating an array with items that are separated by a dot. So the very last item should be the file extension. So I'm going to do x is equal to end, which is how you get something from the very last item in an array. So we'll do that. So that will give us the file extension. So the destination is going to be, let's use preg replace, because I want to replace at the end. I want to be very specific about that. That way preg replace allows us to use a regular expression. So in this case, what I want is a dot. Now a dot has a special meaning in a pattern, so let's escape it with a slash. And then let's put an variable here of our file extension. So we are trying to find dot file extension. Let's put a $sign to make sure it gets only from the end of the string. So the subject is the file name. And then we're replacing this with exactly a dot and the file extension. Let's actually just use a dot like this and then put extension there. It's better to use single quotes when you have no variables in there, so like that, and the extension. But instead of just that, I want to put thumbnail in the name like that and replace it with that. So all I'm trying to do is create a new name for our destination so that there is a file and then there's file thumbnail. So let's see how that works over here. So let me not do the cropping here. I'm just gonna mute that after we copy here. I just want to see if we eventually get what we want. So here I'm gonna go to my let me go to this, in fact the public folder. Let me open that. Yeah, so there's some images here I have put. There's one image here and then another iStock image. But let me delete that. What I really want, these are squarish images. I want extremes of images here. So what I want to do is go to where I have some images. I want a few images here of different resolutions. So I want one that's longer than it is wide. So that's width shorter width, like this one. And I also want one that's wider, like maybe this one. It doesn't matter, so I'm gonna copy these guys. Let me put them in here, like so. So, of course, these are my images here. I'm gonna get the file names of these. So let's see this Billy Armstrong here. Let me copy that file name. And what I want to do is try to run this in my home controller. So I'm going to go to my home controller here. And over here, I'm going to do image is equal to model image, because the image class is in the model namespace. That's why we're doing that. Then I'm going to do image and do get thumbnail, like that. And we need a file name in there, so I'm just going to say file for now. Then let's create a few files here. I'm going to do file is equal to and paste that. Okay, so we can test a few file names here. Let me actually start with the second file and not the first one. So I'm gonna copy everything from there. Let me go and duplicate this and paste there. Okay, so file is equal to this one, and we just want to do get thumbnail. So the result of this should be we get a thumbnail version, even though it's not resized or cropped, but we'll have two files. So the moment I refresh, so it doesn't know the function model. Okay, that's because I was supposed to type the word new here. I forgot that. We're instantiating a class, so the new keyword should be there. Syntax error on line 150. Where is that? We're expecting something on line 150. Where is that? Ah, right there. So let's remove this guy. Doesn't cause a syntax error, so refresh. Get thumbnail has too few arguments, so it gets that. Wait a minute, doesn't this have optional? Ah, right. Okay, so this one needs to be optional as well. Okay, so let's refresh. What did I do? 248. Where is this? Ah, this is a function, not a variable. Sorry about that, guys. So let's refresh, and there we go. So now if I check in my public folder, you see this is what we got this time. So we have this original file and this one with a thumbnail at the end to show that it's a thumbnail version of this one. But they're exactly the same. It's just we just made a copy, that's all. Now we need to be able to crop that. So in order to crop it, first we must resize it. Now it's important to know what we are resizing. So let me go here to the crop function, I want it to end somewhere here where we make a resize. So we resize up to here. So here I'll put the return key so that it doesn't continue down here. And all I want to do here is resize based on the knowledge of the source width and the source height. So let's try that. So we have a few things to consider here. So let me bring this up again. So let's say, for example, I want to crop this image. Let's use some extreme examples. So here I will put in, let's say 1000. Let's try 200, 1000. Okay, so this is the width and this is the height. So I want them to be separate. I should be able to choose those. So the thing here is we have an image. Excuse me. So the image is 1920 by 1080, right? So I want it only to be 200 in the width and 1000 in the top bottom. 1000 pixels. So in that case, I need to be able to crop enough that the height is at least 1000, because at least the other one is 200, this one is 1000. So there should be enough material to crop like that. So it should check which of the two is bigger, the width or the height, and then compensate accordingly. So let me give an example here. Excuse me. So let's do this. If let me make sure these are being transferred. So get thumbnail. I'm not transferring these guys originally from there, so I need to put them here instead of these fixed values down here. So I need to grab those and put in here. Okay, good. That way they're being moved along the chain. That's great. So at this point where we have a return here, I need to make a resized image. So I'm going to do this and say resize. Now resize requires two params. The first one is the original file name. The second one is the max allowed value. This is what I'm more concerned about. So we need a way to calculate this. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to say if the width that we want, okay, which is max width in this case, the maximum width of the image of our cropped image, that's what we want, is greater than the height. Okay, there are two options here. And then also if it's not, okay, so in this case it definitely isn't, because our width is 200, our height is 1000, so it's gonna go to this level here. So that's the first condition we have to look out for. The second condition is if the source, okay, the source width is greater than the source height, like that, and then that too should have an else statement. Oops, wait, what am I doing here? This is supposed to have an else. So if that is true, then else, there we go. Same thing here. What's happening? All right. So this should be repeated over here as well. So there are actually four conditions here we are looking for. The first one is if which of the two is bigger, the max width or the max height, the one we want to crop, what we want to actually use. Do you want to crop here? And these are the preferred cropping sizes we want, right? But there's also the sizes of the actual image itself, right? One of these is bigger than the other, the width or the height. Also, the params we've given, one of them is bigger than the other. So this is why we have four conditions here. So we first check for that and then do a double check here and else do another double check there. So if the maximum width width that we want, which is this 200 here. If that is greater than the height, in our case it is not. Okay, so if it isn't, it comes down here. Okay, great. But what about the image itself, the source image? Is the width greater than the height? And if I look at this image we're trying to crop, it seems it is. So let's go here. The width is 1920 and the height is 1080. So the width is indeed greater than that. So we do something here, right? We gotta figure out what this max value is. By the way, here I have a $sign on the if statement, so that shouldn't be correct. So let me remove those two there. Okay, so let's determine what the max value should be. Now, the max value is supposed to make sure that regardless what we are trying to crop, we have enough room to do that cropping. So we resize the image small enough to actually get what we need, but not too small that we don't have enough information. So if the max width, or the width that I want to be the maximum crop size is greater, and the width of the actual source of the file is greater, then here we just say max width is equal to, the max is going to be equal to max width there. But if it isn't, then max is going to be equal to, we make it bigger by first finding out what the ratio is between the width and the height is. So we do that by looking at the source width. Since the source width is bigger, we're going to divide that by the source height, and then whatever value we find there is the ratio between the width and the height of the image. Then we can multiply that by the max width. That way we make sure the max width is big enough to cater for what we want. So the reason here is this: if the width of an image, let me go back to Paint so I can try and explain this a little bit. So in this case here we have a max width. What we want really, let's say the source width, here the source height is greater. So let's say an image we want to crop looks something like this, right? So the height is greater than the width. But for our cropping, the width is greater. So we want to crop a piece that is wider than it is longer, like that. So this is what we want. This is what we have here. So in order for this to work, we need to at least make sure, because then we're going to go here. Okay, so the maximum in cropping should make sure that the width here has enough space to accommodate this high width that we want. So we don't want to, because normally what would happen is, if we just set this, let's say for example, let's use some real numbers here. Let's say for example, this width is 1500. Well, actually, let's just go with 1000 so that it's easier to determine, right? But then here I have something that is, I want to crop to 500. Oh, my mouse is terrible here. 500 by 200, let's say. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, I want to make sure that there is enough of the resized image for me to have at least 500 pixels. Because in this case, normally we would say when resizing, would look at the height of this, okay? And then look at the height of this one and just make sure that at least we have 200 pixels worth of real estate here to get our 200 pixels. But in this case, we'll forget that we need more of the width in this case here, because if we reduce this height to 200, just so we have enough for this 200 here, then this is 1000, because on this side this is probably maybe 3000 because this is longer, right? Now if we reduce 3000 to 200, which means the 1000 will reduce to maybe even 100 or something, or 150 or something, which will not be enough for this 500. So what we do instead, we get a ratio of the source image width and height, and then whatever it is that we get here, we just need 200, right? But we need to know how much of this we need, so we multiply that 200 by the ratio to get enough space to get this 500 here, which means this one now will become longer than we need, just so we can get the 500 there. So I hope this is making sense. If it isn't, just do the math, we will see what this leads to. So I just want to show what this leads us to at this point. So as soon as we resize here, we should have an image that actually suits what we want. So let me go to the home view here, because I want to have side-by-side images here. And let me load the public folder here. Let me just open that folder. Okay, so we're gonna use, which one are we using? We're using this one, not Billy Armstrong. Okay, where is that? Okay, so that's our okay, we're gonna use both and see what happens. So file is going to be, I want to send file over to the view here. So I'm going to put data here, and inside data I'm going to add whatever the file is so that it's accessible on the other side, like so. Okay, great. That way if I go to the view, I'll have file well set up there. And also the image get thumbnail here returns the thumbnail file, hopefully. Where is the, yeah, it does return that, but I have a missing bracket here, so I'm sure something is wrong. But let's see, destination, and then we copy file to destination, and then what we want to do is crop. We want to crop the destination, yes, yeah, okay. What am I doing? So I'm copying from file to destination. So this is the image that we want to crop, so I'm going to put that here on destination. And then what I'm going to do is say file name, because we don't want to replace the old file, is equal to destination at that point. That way when we return file, we have the thumbnail version there. So there's a bracket here that's saying we have something weird going on, so let's see what's going on. Looks like someone is missing a bracket. So yeah, there's a bracket missing here, right there. Okay, got it. Alright, so on the home page here, I wanna put the thumbnail as well. So data thumbnail is equal to, so that we can send thumbnail and file into the view page. So on the view page, if you go to the view files and we go to the home page here, so we have our home page there, but I want to add an image here, and this will come from file like that. Okay, and then let me duplicate that and put thumbnail there as well. Okay, so we all want to know what the resolution is for both of these, so I want to put out that information over here. What I'm gonna do is put a div here, put each one in a div, so that we know the source and the result. This is what I want us to see, source and result. And in here I want to put another div and put a class in there called source, and let me grab this. Let me put thumbnail, so I can grab those two and put some information there so that we know the resolution of these images. So let's put some script tags in there where we can let me put classes here so that I can also get these guys, source img, thumb img, so I can grab these as well, thumbnail img. Okay, great. So let's put a script here. We're gonna do maybe this should load first. So let img is equal to document dot query selector, and then I'm gonna grab the source image. So dot, don't forget the dot source image, which is what grabs this. Let me remove that actually, and this here as well. Okay, so grab that. Let me do the same for thumbnail. So I'm gonna do just shortcut and say thumbnail. So thumbnail image. Okay, so I've just grabbed those two things, and what I want to find out is the resolution of each one. So it's better to do this on the load after the window has loaded. So we're gonna do window.onload because images can take a while to load. So window.onload is equal to function, and let's do that. Okay. So once I've grabbed those, all I need is just the width and the height. So here I'm gonna say document.query selector. Now I want to grab the part that shows the information. So I'll start with the source. I'm gonna do dot source like that, and then let's say dot inner HTML, which is the inside of that div, should be equal to the following text. So I'm gonna put backticks here, so I can put so the width is what's the width? That one is img.width, like that. So if I select this and put a $, it does that. So that's width, and then comma, we repeat ourselves and put height instead. So I'm gonna do height. Let's remove the trailing comma, and I'm gonna duplicate this, and this just can go to the thumbnail like that. And then instead of img, this one is going to represent the thumb. Okay, so great. Let's see if any of these translates. So I'm going to refresh. Okay, so issues here already. It says variable max on 168 is undefined. So let's go to 168. Where is that? 168 right there. Max is not known. Okay, so the reason is because it comes down to here. So let's fix this side as well. So this side means the source height is bigger. So the height is bigger here. So instead of what we did here, we're going to do the opposite here. So I'm just going to grab this and put it there, because this if you see here, width is matching with width. So since this is height, it should match with height, which means it's in the else. So I'm going to change that to height. So max is going to deal with the height in this case because the height is bigger on this side. So we're just doing the opposite of what we are doing here. So I'm going to paste that as well. And since the, let's see, source width is still greater, so we're going to do that. The only thing is we'll multiply by the height. Okay, great. So at least we have that value determined. So let me refresh. And there we go. So we have our image here. This is the original. And there is the resolution, right? And let's look at the resolution of this one. This one is 1700 by 1000. Okay. So what I want to do is just make sure their widths are inline. Let's put a style here and say width, let's say 50%. Alright, that way we can actually see what we're doing. Alright, there we go. Look at that. This is a problem now because now the widths and heights are exactly the same. So this is not what I wanted. Let's do this. I'm gonna do a console.log. We need to get the actual width and height, not the simulated version. So let's inspect the element, and I'm gonna refresh my page so I see a console.log of the image object. Now if I click in there, it should show me what I want to see. So there is a width, which is this one here. This is the translated version. Okay, but I want the original. Scroll height. There must be a number somewhere here that I'm trying to find. So let's just go in and see. Offset height. Okay, so it's called natural width and natural height. So that's what I was looking for. So found it. That's what I do when I forget stuff. I just check the object. It usually has that information in there. So let's use natural here. Natural width capitalized there, and then natural height, like that. Okay, great. So regardless how they look, we're gonna have what we want. So then I can reduce them even further. So I'll put this as 30% so that we can have one single page here. I'm gonna refresh, and there we go. So you see now the width of the original is 1920 by 1080. Okay, so that's fine. But what do we want to resize it to? So if I go back to home here and look at this, we want to resize this to 200 by 1000. So we want the height to be longer than the width. The width is 200, the height is 1000. So that we should at least make sure that our height is 1000 pixels. That way we know we can crop this properly. So let's see that. And as you can see here, our formula works because our height is indeed 1000 at least. But we've made this bigger so that actually this is smaller. It's just that that's the ratio of the image. So as you can see, the aspect ratio has been maintained, which is good. But at least on this part where we need the most pixels, we have enough of them on the height. So let's try and swap these guys. I'm gonna move the 200 to the height. This is kind of better because already the original picture has a bigger width than a height, but let's see what numbers we get. So if I do this now, you're gonna see that these numbers will change. We don't need 1000 pixels here, we just need 200, so it will compensate for that. So if I now refresh, you'll see that we have 500 there, 5 something, and we have 1000 on the width. So now it prioritizes the width because that's the biggest size. So once we have 1000 there, then it will use the aspect ratio to figure out the height that is needed. So we prioritize this side that needs more meat, so which is that 1000 over there. So this seems to work fine with this image here. Let's try an image that's longer than it is wider. So the other Billy Joe Armstrong image is longer in the height, so let's see if it gets confused. If we give it 1000 by 200 pixels, let's see what it does. So let me refresh. This part is very important because if you don't get this right, the cropping will be all messed up. So let's see what we got here. So the original is 1350, height 2000. So the height is bigger, of course, as we can see. Now with our cropping, what we want is more width than height. So 1000 width and 200 height. And as you can see here, the height is enough, but what about the width? The width doesn't seem to be enough there. Okay, so something weird going on here on this one, because the width doesn't seem to have enough pixels, because the width should be at least 1000 pixels while the other one is 200, right? Okay, so let's try and swap these. Let's see where we've made a mistake there. I'm gonna come back and put that 200 there. This one should be fine because that's the natural state of the image. Let me refresh and let's see what numbers we get. At least here it knows the height is 1000. That's great. And we get a 600 there, which is enough to cut for the 200. So the other one didn't work. So there's one condition here that doesn't work well. So let's see what is going on. So on this one we need 1000 pixels on the width. So that so what condition is this? This condition is where the width is greater than the height, right? So where is that condition? This one is the max width, which is the one we've provided, is greater. So the problem is in here. Here seems to be fine. And then what's the second condition? The second condition is the image itself, the source height is greater. So the problem is right here. So the source height is greater. So why? We need more width actually. So okay, so the maximum size should be bigger. So in this case, the maximum size has gone to 678, which is very weird, considering we have a 1000 at least. So we should at least have a 1000 somewhere. So something weird is going on here. What could it be? The formula seems to be fine, I guess. Oh, wait a second. The source width here is bigger, right? So this should work here. But the source width here isn't bigger. It's smaller. Because in this case, we're on the else statement, which means the height itself is bigger. That's why it went here. So we can't divide like this. We should swap these two because we have to put the bigger one on the top so that we get a proper fraction that we want. Okay, there we go. So I think that should sort the problem out. Let's get it. So what we are looking for here is a situation where, since the width is 1000, at least we should have a 1000 pixels on the width, as opposed to what we have. Here we have neither of the two is 1000 at any point, so this is not good. So let's refresh and see if things, oh, there we go. So now things are more sorted because now at least we have a width of 1000, which is what we want. Then the height doesn't matter because it will be smaller anyway. So the cropping will work fine here because our width has enough meat to cover for this 1000 on the width that we want. So let's just confirm that things are still good by swapping these numbers again, just to make sure it will get a 1000 in the height as before. And there we go, 1000 in the height, which means we have enough meat to crop. So at this point, the cropping seems to be going well. So we are resizing properly, and that will do just fine. So I'm going to leave the 1200 here for Billy there, so that we want to crop 1000 here and 200 there. So obviously we need enough 1000 on the width, which we do have. So that's good. Now let's do the actual cropping, shall we? So if I go back here, where we are returning here, we can remove the return or move it down the road a little further. So we repeat ourselves here because we've resized this file. We want to load it again. So we reload the image resource by again checking the type. Now, of course, we already know what the type is. We could have just used this function somewhere to avoid repeating ourselves here, but this is more readable code, so I'm going to leave it as it is. I don't want to. What I could do is put a variable here that contains the function name, and then I can simply just run the function name here without having to put this switch statement here. Maybe we should do that. Let's try that and see if it works. So here we're gonna say let's call it image func is equal to let's try with the default value, which is image create from JPEG. I like that. Let's see if this can work as well. Okay, but then as we move, if the image is this one, that's the type, then we change that to whatever the current image is at the time. So let me just paste these in sequence like so, and then copy what's here and paste it there. So copy from there and paste it there. That way we know what function we're dealing with. Then we don't have to have this switch statement over here. So instead of all of this, we just need this one. Let me do this, boom, and let me do that, boom. Okay, we just need one line, but instead of this here, we're gonna put my func. We're gonna say my func. It's image func, actually. That's what we called it. Yeah. So we can run a variable just like a function, because it's gonna run the function name from within. So let's see if that works and there are no errors at any point. So let's just do a return at that point like so, and let's refresh to make sure there are no errors, and it seems there aren't any errors. So things seems to be going well. This ran just fine. That's how you can avoid repeating that code at the top there. So we've recreated the image resource. We check the source width and height from there, and now all we want to do is crop. So the cropping here shouldn't be a big deal at this point. We just need to go right into the cropping where we copy. Let's create a new version of a new image. So I'm gonna remove this. We really don't need this part at all. Let me see. We don't need that. So we round off these guys. Wait, do we need this either here? I don't think we do. To round these off. Wait a second. I don't think we need these guys here to round anything off, because these values are coming directly from let's see, destination width is equal to round destination width. Wait, why? Okay, I'm getting confused here. Where is this coming from? We don't already have a destination width and height here. Oh, those are max width, max height. Okay, so that's fine. I don't think we need this code here at all. So we create a new image, destination image here, and what I want to do is, of course, these are max width and height, because those are that's the resolution we want for our cropped image. So I'm gonna put those here, and height. So we create a new image. So we get the values of the width and height of this new resized image, and then we create an empty image here, a true color image, using the resolution we want to crop to. So that's why we put those there. And if the type is PNG, we can leave this and put the alpha blending and so on, so that it doesn't mess up the alpha channels. And then we get to the meat of the matter, which is this part for cropping. So now I don't remember what these values are here. So a good way to do that is to say image copy resample, just to just to get the prompts here. So I'm going to mute this, of course. I just want to make a one-on-one comparison here so that I know this is okay, the destination X and the destination Y and the source X and source Y. It's easy to forget what these values represent here. So now what I want to do is just check on these values and what we are doing here. So let me move two numbers away so that it matches a little better, like so. Okay, so the source image is image, the destination image is image, so that's fine. But what do we want here? There's the destination X and Y. These will remain 0, 0, 0, because we shouldn't move these because we want to paste right on the top corner of the destination X and Y. We don't want to leave any blank pixels, so we'll leave that. Then there's destination Y. Oh wait, there's source X and source Y. This is where we are getting the values from, the source X and Y. So let's think about it here. This is roughly what we are doing. The image is longer in here and we want to get this. So the source is this right there. So still on the source here we're gonna do 0, 0, I guess, and then we just move it to this other one here. So let's see how that works. That seems to be fine as well. And then so there's source X and Y, and then there's destination width and destination height. So we don't have these values anymore anywhere here. So destination width and height is the max width and max height in this case, I guess. So I'm gonna copy those guys. Since we don't have these values anymore, I will paste there. And then the source width and source height, actually source width and height will also need to be exactly the max width and the max height, because yeah, I think that's what it should be. So let me try this. Let's put it there like that. So source width and source height should be the same as this image we've created here, because it can fit there, so we can use that as reference. So I think of this as copying and pasting, right? This is our original image, and we just want to move this whole image and paste it on this small window we've created of a new image here. So we're just copying. So the PHP just needs to know which corner maps to which corner and so on, and how wide. So since this line now to the resized image can fit very well on this one, so these two are exactly the same, so whichever values I get doesn't matter, it's gonna work there. So let's try and refresh and see how we have resized the image. And it seems to have worked, because now we have 1000 pixels by 200 pixels, which is exactly what we wanted, right? Granted, it's cropping at the top there, but it's still cropping, so that's great. Let's try and crop differently. Let's swap these numbers and see if that works well as well. So let me move this. Let me move that as well here. Alright, so if I now refresh, we'll see that the 1000 is longer like this, and then we have a 200 this way. Okay, so up to the end there. So this is great. It's actually doing what we want. Let me zoom. My mouse boy is crazy. It's going all the way. Oh, actually that's not the issue, is it? Let me try responsive design view. I want to, yeah, there we go. I just wanted a smaller view. So as you can see, it has cropped out this side here to give us the 200 by 1000. So it's cropping very well. The only problem is it's not cropping in the center at all. So we're going to fix that in a moment, but this is working just fine. Let's try a different file that's wider than it is high. Let's see what we get here. So if I refresh, we get exactly what we want, because there's an image here. Top to bottom is cropped just fine. Let's swap these over to the other side. Let me move this here. Let me move that here. So now we have 1000 by 200. So it's going to trim just the top part here. Let me refresh. And there we go. It did trim just the top part as intended. So the cropping is working as we need it. We just need to center it now. So the question will be, how do we center it? Now, centering may seem like a chore, but it isn't. Let's look at this part here. If we grab this image that's at the bottom and move it at the top here, we'll see that this is the layer that is, the top part is the part that is cropped out. Now, the remaining meat at the bottom here that was removed, this distance, the height, for example, if we cut it in two, that same piece that was thrown away at the bottom here, if we cut it in two along the latitude or XY plane, then we move one of those pieces above, it will force the one that is on top to the center. So that's how you find the center. You just look at the whole height here and subtract the one that you have kicked out, that part, and then divide it in two, and that's the value you put in the y-axis here. Okay, so finding the center will be great. Now let's come back here. We could find the center because we're going to need all these conditions here. In each of these conditions, finding the center is different. So how we do that is by figuring out these values. So the source is what needs to be changed. So here we have destination X and Y. This never changes, so we'll leave that. But source X and Y may change. So I'm going to grab those two there and put them here. Paste like that and put them as variables. So those are the two values we need to change in order to adjust the center point, because those are from the source. That's where we are getting the information. We can't do anything on the destination once we've already cropped. So that's that. So what I'm going to do is put those guys right at the top here and put zeros that they already had previously so that we start with that. So I'm going to put a zero, like so. Okay. Goody. So in here we have to modify either one of these depending on the situation. Okay, so let's look at situation number one. So this is our current situation. Our source is wider than it is high. So when the source is wider, which is this, so we are going in here, right? Oh, no, actually that's not true. We are looking at these are the numbers we input here. So yeah, our width is higher, so that's great. So which is this, which means we come here. But also the original image, the width is higher. So this is the point right there where we are at. So max is equated to this one. So in this case, if I look at my image, what I need to adjust is the y here. I'm going to look at the remainder. So I'm going to subtract the value I'm going to crop from the total and then divide that by 2. So here what I'm going to do is I want to edit the y. So I'm going to come here and say source y is equal to, like I said, I have to subtract two numbers. The source height, right? So let me grab that. The source height minus the max height, which is smaller. Okay, so I subtract those two and then divide that number by 2, like that. And I may need to round that off, because when you're dividing, you're gonna get decimal pixels, which is not really a thing. So if I move here, I should see a change once I refresh my page. And as you can see, there it is. There is a change, although it went overboard, because look at that. That doesn't seem like the right thing to do. So what's going on here? Source y is equal to, from 0, it was, let's see, source height, right? Which is the source height, minus max height, which is this one here. So we subtract those two and then divide by 2. So that should be a no-brainer, but it doesn't seem to be working out well. So let's echo the source y here and see what's going on. What number does it give? Because looking at this, we're supposed to have the original here, the height is 1080. Oh, no. That's actually not true, because we are not showing the resized version. So we should see what the resized version is. So those are the wrong numbers. So the resized version is... right. Okay, so I see where the problem is here, because the source width and height change once we get to this point. So unfortunately we can't do this here. So I have to just copy this again and paste it here after we've recaptured, because we're doing this before we resize the image, so that's not gonna fly at all. So we have to do this after. So let's get back here. I think that is our downfall right there. So let me remove the echo. I don't think we're gonna need it, because I know the math here is solid. So instead, what I'm gonna do is grab this source. These guys, I don't need them there, I need them here. Doesn't really matter though, but better closer to where they are being used. So I'm gonna do that, and this should work again. So max width, max height, source width, because this number has changed now after this, so that's why we need to do it here. Now we don't need to change this max thingy, we don't need this max, it was just needed for there, so we can as well remove that. So I'm going to remove these guys here. We're going to put some new values there, and where we don't need the values, we're going to remove those statements. So here, this should do the trick. So let's come back here and see. Look at that. Wait, what number is that? Why is there still an echo there? Oh, it's because we are still doing that here. So let's remove that. Let's come down here, source y. I don't think that will change anything though. Let's refresh. Okay, so let's see where the issue is again. So image, max width. Okay. Wait a minute. Yeah, I'm supposed to do this after this point. Why do I keep messing up? So let's move this above there, because we're using these values there and we need the fresh ones. So this is why it's not working. So one more try, boom. Okay, so now as you can see, it's cropping right in the center, right from here to there. So that's the box we are cropping right there, which is great now. Okay, goody. So if you want to move, you just need to move the source Y to adjust where you want to crop. So if I leave this at 0, it will crop at the top, and if I divide this, maybe I don't divide this, then it will crop at the bottom. If I don't divide this by 2, it's gonna crop the bottom. So that's how you do it. I'm gonna refresh. Now you see it's cropped the bottom, right? Then if I divide it by 2, it's gonna crop the center right there. Okay, and then if I leave it at 0, it's gonna crop the top like that. So you can adjust this value as you wish. You can put an if statement and make the right choice there depending on what you want. So I want the center, I'll leave it there. Okay, so that's one condition there. Great. Now let's go ahead and move this guy so that we see the second condition. And let's try that out again. So if I now refresh, so here we are cropping top to bottom, but it's not cropping the center, it's cropping at this side. So let's look at where this condition is. Here we are moving the x-axis, right? It's in the x-axis that we need to center. So let's see that. And also the conditions that we have here are where the height is bigger on the max, so it's not going to go here at all, it's going to go here instead. So we are in this territory now. And then the source width is higher than the source height of the image. So then it means we are in this territory here, and we're dealing with the X because that's the X we have to adjust, and all we need to do is change that to width and source W there. And voila, that should do the job. So if I refresh now, it's cropping in the center, which is great. And just like the other time, if you leave this at 0, it will crop at the beginning. If you you remove the division, it's going to crop at the very end, I think. Yes, it's going to crop at the very end of the image, which is what you see there. So it's up to you what you want to do. Good. So now we have done that condition, but we need this else condition where if the source image itself is longer on the height. So let's view that one instead, right, which is longer on the height. So let's see what we can do here. If I now refresh, this is what is happening. So we need to fix this as well. So in the if statement, we have the height is longer on the source image, but actually even on the max width. So both sides the height is longer. So let's see that if statement. So this is where this is bigger. So we go to this section. And then here as well, this is bigger. So we have to go here. And let's notice what we are supposed to adjust. It's the x-axis because it's left and right. So that's the x-axis. So I'm going to grab this and paste it there, like so. So in the x-axis, we look at the width, max width, divide that by 2. Okay, seems like a straightforward thing here. Let me refresh, and it did crop in the center. Very nice. So we didn't have to change anything there. And as you can see, here we're repeating the code regardless what the if statement says. So this just tells us that we don't need this if statement. In both cases, it doesn't matter. It's gonna work the same. So we can just remove this code here like that and just leave that like so. Okay, goody. So I'm gonna take a guess and say this is exactly what should happen here as well. So we're just gonna have to remove that and adjust this like so, like that. Okay, good. So let's test both cases now. So I'm gonna go back here and swap these two guys before I change the image. So now I want a bigger width and smaller height, but I still want it to crop in the middle. So if I refresh, and it does crop in the middle, which is great. Let me zoom in a little bit, and you can see it cropped right smack in the middle. So that's great. It means on both sides it works for this image. But let's go back to the other image and just confirm that we haven't spoiled anything. I'm gonna refresh, and as you can see, it still works. And let's swap these guys here. I'm gonna move 200 here over there and 1000 over there, like so. And let's see that. Okay, I just want to confirm this is the center, and it is. Okay, so our cropping true is working as intended. Okay, so now we can crop to any resolution, to any size that we want, which is awesomeness. Now if I want to crop this to 200 by 200 pixels like that, I expect it to crop in the center. So let me refresh, and as you can see, it did crop in the center. And there it is. The image is cropped right where I need it, like right there. Very, very nice. So this will be much easier to load than to load this whole image just to display 200 by 200 pixels when we can just have 200 by 200 pixels itself and the thumbnail version. So I like that. And one final thing we can do is, if I go back to the image function here, now I can remove this one at the bottom here because we don't really need it. So let me move down here to the thumbnail thingy. Now, if the file exists, we check the destination, right? Now, if there's a thumbnail already existing, there's no need or no point in actually making a new one. So what we're going to do is, instead of going through the crop process every single time, we're just going to check if the destination exists. So we're going to say if file exists, because if it does, we can do a shortcut instead. No need to trouble ourselves. So if file exists destination, then let's just return it. There we go, and that should solve the problem. Then we don't need to go through all this trouble of cropping our image if it's already cropped. So in order to get a new thumbnail, you'd have to delete the old one, and then you can get a new one. And by the way, with cropping, there's a you can determine the quality of the crop by just adjusting those numbers there. But I would suggest you just change the resolution to something that looks better if that's what you need. But certain thumbnails, let's see if we can crop this to really small values, like let's try 80 by 80. Let's see what we're gonna get, right? When we do that, do we still get most of this data? And as you can see, it didn't actually crop, because I was gonna say, you know, look at that, it looks exactly the same. But no, there's a thumbnail version here, so let me delete both thumbnail versions here. And then let's do a page refresh. Let's see if anything is changed by this. It doesn't change. You just look at the quality, looks to have changed because the resolution is smaller, but it cropped right to those same values again, which is awesome. This way, at least you can show this image on its own terms, on its real resolution. So instead of putting that width over there, I can remove that so that it shows, as you can see there, nice thumbnail there, very small size. Let's compare the original to the cropped version and see how much we're saving here. So look at that, the thumbnail is 4 kilobytes. That's insane. Well, this one is 1 megabyte. 1.4 megabyte is the original, and we reduced that to 4 kilobytes, which is insane reduction. This will speed up your loading times of your pages, right? So keep that in mind. All right, so we are done with this first part. Let's deal with database migrations next. All right, so let's delete this information here. We don't need anymore. So on the home page, let's just delete all of this. It was just for us to use as an aid. In the same way, in the home page here, we can do exactly that as well. The home controller. And let's also delete the files that we added here, the thumbnails and stuff. Alright, so that is nice and clean. Right, so now we can close the image class. Right, so with migrations, this is the thing. We need a folder. Just like we have controllers, core, we need a migrations folder, but the system can create one for us, so that's not a big deal. Now, a migration file is a file that we create per table that we generate, so that we know it contains a description of a single table. So for now, I'm going to go to Thunder here. And let's look at the samples here. So there's a sample for the model, sample for the controller. Okay. All right, so what we're going to do here is we are going to copy the sample from the model here. Let's copy this. And let's right click on samples here. And of course, my mouse cannot right click for the love of me. Okay, so right click here and say new file, paste, and let's save this one. So this one will be migration sample.php. Great. So we don't need any of these validation rules because we're not going to be using any of this. We don't need the allowed columns either. So we're not going to use model in here. Instead, we're going to use migration. So let's change everything here to migration instead. So of course, as you can imagine, we have to create a trait that is named migration. Then there's class name here, which is fine. And then there's a table there, table name, which is fine. This is all good. We really don't need the primary key ID because we're not inserting any data. Inserting data doesn't need you to know the primary key either, so let's remove all of that. But what we do need is two functions. So public function. One function is going to be called up, one is going to be called down, because this is just how other frameworks have done it. So why not copy? I forgot the word function here. All right. So up and down. So up is when we create the table. Down is the function we call to delete the table. Okay. So when we do run, let's say we run this migration here, the migration file, we are going to drop a specific, oh, wait a minute. We're going to drop the table that was created in here. So even if we create many tables and put them in one class, we should still be able to delete them down here. So we're going to need a function for doing that, so which will be part of the main migration trait. So we're going to create it as drop table, like that, and then we just need at least to just put the table name. So most likely the table name will be the very table that we create here. Then we're going to use this table here instead. Now, putting things like this, I guess, may be a problem because we can only put one table in one migration file, but we should allow our migration file to contain as many tables as we want if we want to do things that way. So that's entirely up to you. So maybe let's remove that as well. We're going to add other properties here. So instead of table, let me try and move this to, what are we going to call this one? Let's try keys, like that, and let's make that an array, right? Let's do this. Okay, so we're going to do columns. We're going to need columns. Actually, these should just be in the main migration thingy. We don't need this here, actually. Okay, let's explore what's required. So drop table, obviously. Then we put a table name here. Maybe the table name could be equal to the class name, maybe. So let's put those there. We're going to change this if we need to. And usually it's not capitalized, so let's put in small letters like that. Okay. And then we will need things like, when we are creating a table, we add columns, right? So we're going to need a function called add column like that. Then we're going to need another one where we add primary key. So I'm going to do primary key like that. And we need one maybe unique key. We may need another for foreign keys. I never use foreign keys, so you can make one if you want, that's fine. Add data so that we can also seed our table if need to upon creation. And then we may also need create table, of course. So create table. I think this is about it. So we can add columns. We can specify which one is the primary key. We can also specify a unique key. And we can also add some data. We can create a table, but we also need to be able to run the data. So we need something that we're just going to call it an insert function like that. Okay. So these will be here just to remind us what's possible. So here we're going to do this. We're going to say allowed functions or methods. Let's call them methods, right? Just to remind whoever is using this that this is what is possible here. Let's do that there, like so. Okay, great. That way when they create a migration file, they can then run these things here, use that to create whatever table they want to create. Okay, now we need to have these functions actually run somewhere. And so we need to, since we are using this migration here, we don't need to extend it here, we can use migration. It means now we need that core function here. Since this will only ever work with Thunder PHP here, our command line 2, we can create our migration trait within here. So if I go to database, there's a class database that uses the main database. Okay, so that's fine. What can we do here? Now, I don't want to repeat myself to create an insert function that already exists. So what I'm going to do is, once I create the thing here, I'm going to tell it to use database so that we can use some of that as well. So model database, that's great. Migration will be in the, it will be in the same namespace, so no need to do that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is create a core trait here, and I want to use database just like this one. So let me just copy this database thing here. So I'm going to go Thunder, new file, paste and save. This one will be saved as migration. So migration.php. So let's change all references except the DB to migration. This one is in the namespace migration. All right, great. So this is good. Now we need to use protected, since these will never be used outside the function itself. These functions will always be used within this class, which since it's using the migration, the main migration here class, it's going to be like it's part of it. So we can say protected function, which is the same as private but inheritable. So protected function, let's say add column. Let's start with that. So here what we're gonna do is let's add a few protected again items like columns, for example. This is gonna be empty for now. So let's duplicate for everyone. Let's see, keys. So there's columns, there's keys, there's also primary keys, there's also unique keys. What else? There's also data. Okay. All right. So all those are the things that we can add here: unique key, data, and primary keys and such. So let's just make it look neat by using the tab key and moving things like so. Okay. Great. All right. So we have add column here, and then finally, if we add columns properly, we are going to have to create table. So that is a function we should create as well. So let me come back here. Let's duplicate that, and I'm just going to replace this. Okay, so there we can generate a table as we wish. So to add a column, we just add the columns to this. So here, the column is whatever a string that came in with that. So we're just gonna call it text. So it's column text. So I'll say this. Okay. So whenever we instantiate this, it's going to have emptiness in there. But actually, no, this is fine. We can empty these once we create a table. So it's okay. So we can say this columns and do that. And then is equal to the text like that. Whatever text we were given there. So same thing when we are adding primary keys. Now the thing is, what we want to do is in the end we want to create a query that just creates a table for if we need to. So a good way to figure this out is if we go to our localhost phpMyAdmin, we go to any database that we have and then just check to see how we did things there, how things are created in there. So let's look for MVCDB. Here it is. We have a users table here. So if I select that and go to with selected, show create. So as you can see here, this is the general format of a create table query. So I'm just going to copy this so that we see the mechanics of it. So if you want to know how to add, for example, unique keys or foreign keys, all you have to do is add them in phpMyAdmin and then do the show create query so that you see how MySQL would create a query to create exactly that table. Then it will show you how the foreign keys are created. Then you can generate a string that matches that as well. So let's look at add primary key here. Like that. Okay, so I'm going to put the text down here as a constant reminder. So when we create the table here, we have to look for everything that was added to the column. Now when we add column here, for example, in the add column we'll do something like ID. For example, if we're adding an ID, then we'll describe it as well. I don't want us to create a very robust system or a very verbose system where you have to chain these things like they do with Laravel and other systems, where you say you put a column name and then you say this is primary key or something like primary, and then you do that and chain that and add maybe default value, something like this, and you point again to something and put it. I don't want that. Let's simplify things. Let's make life easier for ourselves. So we're gonna say add in id int, and then you put all the regular stuff that you put on a column before the comma. So something like, you can even put primary key in there. You don't even have to use the add key. You can just put it right there, and then put default 0, etc., etc., just like that. When you add another column, then you can change and say this column is a var car, something like that, and then you put the usual length in there, and then you put all the other params just like that. This is much easier than the way other frameworks do it, but those guys spent more time creating those things. That's why they have so many features, but we don't have that kind of time. And since you're the one that is creating this MVC, you know it in and out. So if you want, you can add extra features. If not, you can just type it as they are. So you see here, this is one column right there. This is the kind of value that would go in add column here. That's the kind of string that would go there, just like this one as well, and that one. One of these each. So for adding a primary key, this is the kind of string that would go in, and so on. So when adding a primary key, here it's the key name that we're getting, the key name there. So let's see, primary keys, like that. Okay, we don't need these dollar signs here, like so. Okay, great. Same thing with unique key. So you can test the unique key as well. Same thing. Let me change the primary to unique. And let's change that as well to unique. Okay. All right, so there will be a key there as well. So adding data needs two params, a column that you're adding and the value. So key value pair, like that. Key value. So add data, right? So here when we say data, we're gonna put the key in there and the value over here. Simple and straightforward, like that. Okay. So what else do we need here? Primary key, unique key, add data, and insert comes with the database connection, so we're gonna leave that out. And then there's create table now finally, and then there's drop table. So drop table is easier to do. So let's grab this and let's just duplicate that, and let's say drop table here. It's easier to implement, I meant. So here we have the table name, and all we're gonna say is this query, because database comes with a query function, and then all we need to do is say drop table let's see, drop table if exists. I don't know if you can write something like that, but drop table, and then we just have to concatenate the table name, and that's all. So once we run that query, and that's it, we drop the table. So at this point, once these things run, we probably should echo. Since this is going to run in the command line, it would be better to echo something. So we're going to do, let's do nr so that we have a return there. Then we say table, and then we put the table name. Then we say successfully removed or something. And then of course we go back to our return there. Okay, great. Okay, so let's copy this again. Let's come back to create table. This will be a very similar message that we have to echo in the end. Successfully created. Okay, similar thing. So create a table, and then that's the table name right there. Okay, cool. So now we're gonna run a query as well here. So copy that and bring it at the top there and paste it. But in our case, we will generate our query from here, create a query string. Okay, like that. So let's generate a query here. And a query looks something like this, right? Create table and the name of the table. So let's copy that and come over here and paste that. Okay, so create table. Now it won't be users table, so of course we have to put the variable there. And also it's better to not remove a table if it exists. So say if not, now you can capitalize this because so create table if not exists table, right? And if you notice, there is a open bracket that goes on there, and then we get this. So here all we have to do is concatenate all the columns that were added. So here all we have to do is go with a for each loop, say for each this columns, right? Columns as a key and value. We don't really need a key for this. We just want the column names themselves, which are just inside values. So we're just gonna do column like this. And 1 second here. Let's bring that back. Okay, so we want to concatenate or connect to this one. So we're gonna do dot equals, and I'm gonna put column there. So I'm just gonna do column because all the text is already there, and then I'll concatenate a comma at the end, just like that. So we add all those guys there, add columns, great. Then finally here we can just run the query, but not so fast, because after all the columns have been added and stuff, we add keys, right? There's just this key with a name, and then there's also primary key. So if there was a primary key, this is the format to follow. So I'm going to copy that right there. So let's do another for each loop here for primary key, right? So let's look for primary keys here. Okay, so instead of column here, we have a key. Now the format we have seen, as we have seen here, looks something like this. Primary key, and then this, and then the name of the key itself. So it doesn't have to have the quotes around. Let me concatenate like this. And then I'm gonna do bracket, and then put a comma at the end there, like so. Okay, great. So that's how we add primary keys. If there are any regular keys, we can add them as well in the same fashion. So let's try, I don't know how unique keys are added. So what we're gonna do is, it's very weird. Let me go to the users thingy here again. Let me go to structure. And what we're going to do is on password, we're going to add a unique key. So I'm going to do unique. Okay, so just there, it shows you already. It says table users, alter table users, add unique key, add unique. So it's just unique like that, and then the name. So it doesn't have to say primary key, it just needs to say unique. So we can add it there because we can always delete it if we want to. And then let's look at the create function once more. If we go back to this, select that, and then do the show create one more time, you see it shows unique key like this, the name of the unique key itself, and then the column that is involved, just like key here. So there's key and there's unique key. So those two are pretty much the same. So I'm going to do unique, but here we have to remember to remove the unique key we've just added. So I'm going to click on that, and on the structure it does show what keys you've added down here, especially this one, the unique key here. I'm going to drop it, say OK. Okay, so it's no longer there now, which is great. All right, so unique keys, instead of primary key, we just say unique, like that, and as simple as that. And then finally we add our regular keys. So these ones are just keys. Oops, what have I done? All right, let's see, this keys as a key, and then we just remove the unique here. We don't need that. Just add that there. Good. So everything is added. You can do the same for foreign keys, but I'm not going to get into that. And then let's see what happens after the keys. So just make sure at the end there, the final thing doesn't have a comma. Then we can close the bracket and then put this text at the end. Now, in case you want, oh, it shows auto increment here. Now, usually auto increment goes back to its original state when you first create the table. I don't know why this one was at 2 for some reason. Let's go ahead and check a different table. Let's go to this Jack and Rose thing. So I'm going to select one of these and let's just check show create, auto increment. Oh, okay, so it's always there apparently. Oh no, that's because we haven't truncated these tables. I see. So if I go to users here, there's a user over there. So let me go to operations in this users table and truncate it. So you can do what I'm doing here with tables, you can do with any table. It doesn't have to be this one. We're just trying to see how tables are created, that's all. So I'm going to select that again and do show create. Okay, so which means there we can completely eliminate that part that says auto increment and it will work just fine. All right, so before we conclude, we can do another query, dot equals, and paste that like so. Okay, so let's remove the auto increment there. Great. Now if you want, you can add more variables to add to this part as well, but mine never changes, so I'm just going to leave it there like so. This is fine. So you can customize because this is your own creation, this is your own MVC system, so knock yourself out and add features that you would like to see. But before we do that, I need to trim the commas at the end, so I'm going to do query is equal to trim like that and put query again. Put a comma to tell it what I want to trim, which is the comma like so. Okay, so that's fine. Now everything should run and a table could be created just like that. So what about the add data and insert? Those are things we should deal with as well. So with these we are done. So I'm gonna remove this like so. Great. So drop table, all these functions are now working as intended. But then there's create, wait a second. It's this one right here. Now this is going to be, yeah, this is going to be weird. what to do. Add data, insert. I think what I'm going to do here, I'm going to change this one to insert data so that it's a different implementation here. So we're going to have insert data function instead, so that it's different to the insert function that comes with database. Okay, so what I will do is insert data protected function, insert data. This one will come with the table name to tell us which table we are inserting that data into, right? So all we need to do now is just say this, and let's see here, we're given column key value pairs. That's what we were given. So all we need now is to insert these. So I'm going to do insert like that, because that's a function that comes with database. And then I can create a query here. And then since there's a key value pair already existing, I'll just add this and say data at that time. Excuse me. So there's data there, which has a key value pair of what I need to insert. Now, I forgot something. After I run this, I have to erase the data. So once I create this, I have to empty all of these guys here. Now, only what I've used should be emptied, not data, but these guys here, the columns and stuff. So I'm going to copy these guys that I have used, and I will erase them. So let's move this a bit in there. So instead of protected, I'm going to do this here. Delete that, move that, and say this, right, is equal to emptiness, like so. Okay, so we empty those guys, readiness for a new table to be generated. In the same way, we can erase the data down here after inserting, right? So here we can say data is equal to that. Then we can echo as well down here and say data inserted successfully in table, and then there's the table name there, like so. Let me delete that like that. Okay, so that we know the data was inserted, but we need to create the query here. So let's do query is equal to. Now, in order to insert, we have to use, actually we can't use the insert here. Wait a second. Why do I even need to create a query? The insert thing here, oh, that doesn't work. This works with a specific table. So we cannot use that. So we have to use the query function. So we're going to say insert into, and whatever that table is, then we implode, because it's like that. Then we do an implosion. We say implode. The glue is going to be a comma, and then here we're just going to make a variable called keys, and we implode that. The keys will be turned into text separated by a comma, and then once we finish doing that, we close that gap, and then we do values and repeat the process one more time. So let me grab that. It would be more efficient to just implode it in the first place and then just put those things in here, but I think this will do just fine as well. Let me paste there and close that like that. Okay, now the only difference here is that here we need full colons for the prepared statements, and then after every comma there should be a full colon there as well, like that. So each of the letters is this is exactly what we did in the insert function. If you look in the model.php class, that's exactly what we're doing here again. So keys will be equal to array keys, so that we just grab the keys from the data, right? So array keys we want to get from this data array. Okay, so insert data and then empty it. Now of course data should not be empty before we do this kind of thing, so we say if not empty, just to be sure that, then we do the following. Okay, so let me move this to the very end, and let's do that. Then we can duplicate this, put an else statement like so. Could not be inserted in table, and so on, right? So we can do that. If not empty, we do this. If empty, we show that. This is similar to what we need in this process right here. So we need at least some columns to be available, right? So this columns like so, and duplicate, and then let's move all of these in there, and an else statement. Then we can move this one up and tab. Table could not be created. Okay, so that's our migration class right there. So hopefully everything will work well, looking at what we've done so far. Now we just need to be able to copy this sample into whenever someone wants to create a new migration, then we create this and then see the potential problems that we have and try to fix them. So here what we can do is let's add a single column at least. I'm gonna go to this part here. I'm gonna grab this section there and paste it here. Let's do that. I'm gonna remove the backticks here. I don't need them. And let's move this above like so. Okay, so we add a column. Int, usually you don't need to provide the 11 there, but that's fine. No auto increment. And we can also leave out the primary key and just say ID there like so. So these are like examples of what is possible. Let me duplicate these twice. This is, I'm gonna put date created and also date updated, because these are common columns that I used. Let me change this to date time, and we can leave these as null. Of course it doesn't have to be auto increment like that. Okay, so that will do just fine. So at least like this is the basic stuff. Okay, so then the user can see that they can also use these that are here, so that is okay. But let's move the create table out like so as well. And we're gonna use the class name here, the small letter version down there like so. Okay, so at least they can see that you can also add this. Now, in order to add some data, you have to put add data and then insert data and put the table name there. So that's just to show what is possible. So maybe here we can say creating a table, inserting data. And then inserting data. Let me just move these. These will serve as examples of what is possible. So let's do this. Let me do that. Say insert data. Okay, so data here, we can add some. Let's see, date created, duplicate, date updated. Let's see, updated, and then insert. Let's use the same one again. Insert data into that table. So the class name here will be usually the table name as well. So it's gonna have the same name there. So that's why, but this one will be small letter version. Okay. So if you're going to insert 2 rows of data, for example, you would have to repeat this action twice. So this one will insert 1 row. So here there's date created, that's the key. We also need the value. So the value for both is literally the same. It's gonna be like this. And then that's just a date format. Okay, something like that. So this is just to remind the user what they can do. Okay, very good. So now that we have this sample page here, the sample migration file, we can go to Thunder PHP here and make something that would copy this file for us. So there's this make function, which is where this one will fall under. So there's make controller and then there's make model. So make model and make migration are pretty much the same. So I'm going to copy this and put it here. Let's do that. Alright, so copied, great. So the file name here is inside apps, and instead of models, it should go to migrations. So now the thing is, the folder may not exist, so we have to create that folder. So I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go folder is equal to migrations. Now I just want this part of the thing, so I'm gonna copy that. So it's going to be app migration with, actually, let me do this. Okay, that way we can replace this first part with the folder name, like that. Okay, great. Then there's get contents, samples. This is fine. Instead of model sample, we're going to get migration. Okay, that does it. But we need to ensure that the folder exists. So I'm going to say if a file exists, folder. So if it does not exist, let's put a not there. Then let's make the directory, and the path is folder, permission 077, and recursive is true. Okay, great. Recursive means if there are several folders in the chain that are not there, it will create all of them to get to the one you want. So here we have our file name. That migration file already exists in case it does. So there we go. So this will be rare because the file name itself will be generated according to there's a class name there. You see first, is it? Yes. But instead of that, what we want to do is we want to create a migration file based on the date. So at least that is the convention. So what we're going to do is, I want it to be very specific at least, so human readable date, because usually you see migration files with non-human readable date. So here I want this to be like this, so underscore between the things. So this will look like something like 1st Feb 2023 or something like that, and then underscore. It's better to put the hours as well. Now let me put underscore the minute, underscore the second as well. And then after this we will put an underscore as well, so we might as well just put the underscore here. So that's our date formatted like this, and this is the class name itself. Okay, and then .php at the end there. Okay, so that's great. That will make that migration file. And then we get our sample, and the sample file we replace everything with the capitalized. This one we replace with the that. Okay, so that works. And we don't have we don't need to add s here, for we don't have table anywhere. So for now we're going to mute this part right here. So just in case we realize we need it, we can always come back, but if we see that we don't, we can just remove it. So from there, what we have, a file put contents, file sample, model. Instead of model, it's going to be migration file created successfully. And then it would be good to put the file name here as well. So file name, but let's just get the base name. So we're gonna do base name like that, but we can't use functions like this. We have to step out of the string. So let's do that and concatenate like so. Okay, so at least we are shown the file name. Failed to create migration due to an error. Okay, great. Right, things are looking okay. This is the migrate function. Okay, so function migrate. Okay, so at least this helps us to create a migration file. So let's give it a test run and see what errors we could get. So here I'm going to do this. If we go to our config, where is the config? So it's MVC DB. That's great. And let me open this folder here so we can use the command line. So we're gonna go cmd and then cd. Let's change it to that. Oh, what have I done? cd paste. Okay, so let's clear the screen. So here we just have to do thunder and say, actually we need to start with PHP because this is running inside PHP, so Thunder, and then we're gonna say make migration. That's what we want to do, make a migration, and then you name your table that you wanna make here. So maybe it's a posts table, so it's gonna be like this. Press enter. Migration file created, and this is its name right there. Okay, very good. With the what's this, the class name at the end there, which is going to be very useful in running the functions from there. So if we check now, we have a new folder called migrations, which is great. And now we have one single migration file there, which is good. At least you can see its class posts there, which is great. It will work out because it's inside a different namespace, so even if you have another class named posts, it won't interfere, which is good. Then it uses that migration. Very nice. So what we have so far is already ready to use as it is. Oh, but this did not replace, right? So that isn't good. So what we're gonna do is let's delete that file. So let's edit our content here. So there's supposed to be a place where we replace. So I want to replace this small letter version. So I'm gonna go edit. Let's go convert case to lowercase, like that. Okay, so everything there will be replaced with, instead of UC first, this is going to be string to lower, like that, and then inside sample file. Okay, so we've edited that. All we have to do is press F2, it's actually F3 I think, to repeat our action. Let me close that and press enter. So again, the migration file was created. See how fast that is. And as you can see now, the table is named posts, like that. So now we can create a table very quickly like this by just running this function, this class right here. If we just run the up here, and that's well and good, things are going to work out. So now we need to know which file to actually load. So here, when running the migration, we have to specify the file. So the best thing to do is to try and act like you are renaming the file, and then we use that. Let's see, rename. And then we copy the file name itself, and we use that to run this. So if I go back to Thunder PHP here, I think we won't be needing this over here. So I can remove that. In case we need it, we can copy it from the other side. There's a migrate function over here. Okay, this is the migrate function. So when somebody says migrate and then there's a file name, we have to grab that file name. So here we have argv, there's mode, okay, that's great, and then class name. All right, I think that's looking okay. Oh, okay, wait a minute here. So we need a way to run the migration file from Thunder PHP there. So let me grab these guys from here. So when someone says migrate, it should go to this function right there. So here, let me paste these. Let's put argv over here since it comes with this. Remove that there. Okay, so let's see if we're gonna get, we will get this is the migrate function, but we're supposed to get, instead of class name, it's gonna be file name, I guess. All right, so all I want here is to echo the file name just to see if things are working as intended. So I'm gonna try and supply this file in my command line. So once you create a migration file, then you can run it immediately, because you can see here there should also be one command that lists the migrations, so that you don't have to go to the file system itself. You can just copy and run the one you want. So we're going to make that as well. So here we will do PHP Thunder, and then we're going to do migrate like that, and then we put the file name that we want like so. So that's the file name. So I want to see what result I get, and as intended, this is the migrate function, and I get the file name itself. Okay, so great. So at least we know the file name is correct. I don't even know what I've done here. I may have opened a new window by mistake. Alright, so back to thunder.php. So let's go to migration. Okay, so migrate here. Now we have to check if the file exists. So we're gonna do if file exists, and that's the file name. So if it doesn't, we have to die and tell the user that that file could not be found. But if the file does exist, we're going to include the file. So I'm going to say require this file. Okay, that's the file name. So it usually is in the migration. Wait, yeah, the file name here cannot be seen to exist at all. So we're going to just do file require file name. So we have to edit the file. This is just the best name we have. What we need is something like app/migrations/ and then the current file name at the end, like so. Like that. Okay, but here we want to use the ds instead, so I'm going to do this dot and ds, the separator there, do that dot ds, and then a file name, directory separator there. So if file exists, great, there. If not, we'll put that here, and let's just put die, like so. Alright, that way we die here, we don't get there. So migration file run successfully. Let's put that file name there again. So I'm gonna do base name again and put file name, concatenate, like so. Okay, migration file runs successfully. That's great. Here we've just included the class file, which is this one. So in this class file there is posts. That's the class name. So we need to know this class name in order to be able to run anything inside it. So the clue is in the file name at the end there. So we need to grab a pattern of this at the end there, so that we know so that we know what file name it is or what class name it is. So inside Thunder here, what I would do is, let's grab the base name. Actually, we don't even need that. So once we require it, this is going to be the class name is going to be equal to. So we're going to do preg replace. Okay. So we want to match something in here. Preg replace can give us a pattern. So the pattern we want is an underscore and then some text, which is, let's say, actually, you know, in creating, anyway, I'll leave it be there. It's not for the general public, so it's going to be okay. So here, I wanted to make sure that we sanitize the class name before creating it, but this is fine. So we have to escape the dot because it means something else on its own. And in here, we just want A to Z, small letter Z, capital A to capital letter Z, and then a plus over here, any number of characters. So we're looking for this pattern, an underscore, any number of characters, and then .php, and this has to be at the very end, so we put a $sign at the end like so. So this will just grab the very last part of this to show us the class name, and once that happens, we replace wait a minute. I think what we need to do is preg match this first of all. So now the result is inside match. It's never here. This just returns true or false, I think, for preg match. The matches are in there. So once we get that, the class name is going to be equal to the match that we found, 0, the first item, because it brings an array as a result. So I just want to see if we indeed have the right thing here. In fact, we need to do a string replace and remove the .php at the end. So we're going to look for .php like that, and then comma, replace that with emptiness like so. So there we go. So let's echo the class name. I just want to see that we have the class name down correctly. Alright, so let's try and run this again. So I'm going to do this. Just F3 again, press. So now we have a fatal error. It's saying migration not found. So this trait was not found. Now, this is inside the migration itself. Use migration. Inside migration. Okay, so we need to actually import this main migration. Where is it? This one right here. The migration.php file. Now this one is inside Thunder, and so let's see how we are importing the database file on these other things. Let me see where we import the database. I want to copy that. Okay, so there's db is equal to new database. Since this one is inside, wait a minute. It's in the namespace Thunder, right? Maybe I should have done that. Maybe I should have put it in the same namespace here. Let's see, migration. Yeah, I think that's what I ought to do here. So let me put this in the Thunder. This is the main migration. Okay. Yeah, let's try this again. So once we've changed that, let's do this again. Oh, wait a minute. We haven't instantiated it yet or included it at all. So in the init here, we have database. So we need to include migration as well. Okay, great. So back here, let's try again F3. Let's try this time. Still migration not found. Okay, why is this? Let's go back to, this is in the Thunder namespace now. That's where that comes from. So if we go to Thunder here, oh, wait a minute. We have to change this in here. So this is in the, yeah, that's where the problem is. This is in the migration namespace. Okay, let's change that as well. Since it works inside Thunder, we'll put it there. And now that they are both in the same place, I think it may find it. Let's try one more time. Okay, so Thunder posts cannot use Thunder migration. It is not a trait. Okay, my bad. The migration file here is a class, and instead it should be a trait. So let's change that like so. Now, since it was a class, we can simply just extend it because we don't really need this to be a trait. So what we can do is go to this, and instead of use that, we can just say extends migration. It makes sense to make it a trait if you're going to use it in multiple places, but this, we're going to use it only once, so we can just extend it like so. Alright, so which means even our sample should change to match this. So migration sample, where is that? It should extend migration like that. Okay, goody. And wait a minute, why is this in the migration namespace? This is gonna be a problem. So this should probably be in the Thunder. Wait a minute. Yeah, like I've changed it here, so even the sample should change to Thunder there, like so. Okay, good. So let's give it one more shot. Alright, so at least we're getting different errors now, which is good. So it says undefined variable match. Okay, so let's go to see where that problem is coming from. And this is probably in the migrate. So this one right here, match. Okay. Where is the problem? Undefined variable match on line 175. Okay, so I guess we need to create this before we can use it. Preg match. Oh, no. We didn't specify where we are matching this. Sorry, my bad. We should put file name there and then comma. The matches will be put in there. Okay, great. So let's try again. Okay, things seem to be working. And we have replaced, we have trimmed, so it does know that it's posts, but there's an underscore at the beginning, which we need to get rid of. So string replace that, and string replace any underscores. But wait, no, we don't need to do this. We can simply remove, oh no, I needed that actually, or do I? No, I actually don't, so I can remove this. like so. So let's try again, F3. Okay, so at least now it looks like posts, which is the correct class name. So once we do this, now we can do something like, so this is the class name we need to instantiate. So I'm gonna say my class is equal to new, and then there's a class name here, but if we put those like that, then it becomes a class call like this. Then what I want to do now is say my class and do up like that, and that's it. So this should migrate a file directly. So to know that is, we see if we click on the MyDB, there's only one table there. So if we see a second one, posts table, then it has worked. So we do that again. Okay, so class posts not found. Okay, that's weird. Okay, so we have to try a different way to approach this. Let me try and put this in brackets like so, and let's put the Thunder like that, and then the class name there. So we try that. Let's see how that works. Okay, unexpected token, the slash here. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is, instead I will put this in a string, double quotes, so that it's evaluated first before it being exposed. And unfortunately this slash has eliminated the $sign here, rendered it moot. So I have to put another one to escape the escape value. So this one escapes this one, which makes it a normal string, which means it can't escape this one. So that's how you solve that problem. So I think this is gonna work. Makes sense logically, since once this is evaluated, it will be that, and then this will be a real class name there. Okay, fingers crossed. Let's try again. Let's see what happens. Oh, look at that. It has worked. Very nice. Table posts successfully created. Data inserted successfully in table. Posts migration file run successfully. That was the file. Very good. So let's check it out. I'm gonna refresh there. And as you can see now, we have a new table called posts. And it should have some data in there. Look at that. Very, very nice. Okay. So it seems everything is working as intended. Now we need a way to list the migration files that exist so that we can copy the file that we need to give, because this is going to be hard to find this file name. It's better we are able to actually just copy from here, because right now if I just select that, I can actually copy from there and paste there like so, which makes it easier if it can list the migration files. So let's see here if we have this in here. CDA generators. So we have the generators, we have the display, migrate, rollback, table retrieves. Okay, so I'm gonna do this, duplicate. Instead of generators, this is what do we call these? I don't know, we'll just say other, like this for now. So I'm gonna remove all of this. So this, we're gonna call it list, and then we're gonna say migrations. Okay, so lists displays all migration files available, like that. Okay, so we have to make this list migrations. So we can do that by this make here, which is the make function. So which means we can have a list function. So I'm just going to duplicate that and do this. So let's change that to list. I hope that's not a keyword anywhere. So we'll copy this format right there as well. And mode is here. We're going to make a switch statement. So let's do switch. We're switching the mode. And here this is going to be list migrations. Okay. So once that happens, then we list all the migrations that are available here. Now we don't really need any other param here. Just that is enough. So let's remove that. And so all we need to do is just check how many files are inside the migrations folder. So we will need to create a folder if it does not exist, just like we did here. Where did we do that? When making a migration, where did we make migration? I want this part here. So I'm going to copy that and let's go to here and let's paste. Okay, so that's our folder there. If it does not exist, we create it. However, if it does not exist, we will, I think instead of creating it, better we just say no migration files were found. So just say, I'm going to say die. And maybe let's just copy this part here, because laziness is king. No migration files were found. Okay, great. So if it does not exist, that's great. Otherwise, let's list all PHP files from in there. So we're gonna do file. There's several ways you can read from a folder. There's a class called folder iterator or something, but I'm gonna use glob. That's the one I normally use. Then you give it a pattern here. The pattern will start with the folder name, no? And then we concatenate a star dot php. Wait, is that correct? No, normally we do dot star like this to get all files, but then let's do dot php like so. Let's do this. So this is files. Now I just want to print what's inside files. So I'm going to do print r like that. Print r files. So I just want to see if that works at all. So here I'm going to do PHP Thunder and say list full colon migrations. Okay, so it returns an empty array. So something is wrong. Let me try putting a star there. And let's try this again. Ah, there we go. So it worked out now. Yeah, so it gets all the PHP files, but I just want the base names. So we loop through the array and get only the base names there, because that's the only important part. So from that we can do a for each loop. How do we do this? Yeah, let's do a for each loop. This is files. So we have key and value. Key is not relevant. This one is just file. Then we're gonna do echo file. So I'm gonna grab this, paste it there. First of all, I'm gonna echo a return, just in case we're on a different line here, and then that way I don't have to put it on every line here. This is fine. So instead of die, we need echo here. So it's going to be echo base name file, like that. Okay, and then we concatenate the carriage return here. Okay, so there we go. Here maybe we can say something like migration files, and then put a full colon like that. Okay, so let's try it again. Let's see what we get. Boom, migration files. Wait, why didn't I get a carriage return there? That's what I wanted. N. No, the news there. Okay, there we go. Let's try one more time. My mouse is running away. Okay, so migration files. So if we had many migration files, we'd see two of them. So let me try and make one more. So let's say PHP Thunder, and say make migration, and we're gonna call this one, maybe there's users, there's posts. What other tables are common? I don't know, maybe pages or something. Let's just try that out. So my migration file created, that's good. Now before we run it, we're gonna do PHP Thunder list migrations, like that. And then it shows me two migrations that exist and the date when they were created. So I can copy that, and here then I can type something like PHP Thunder migrate, and then put the file itself. Okay, so Thunder pages cannot use Thunder migration. It is not a trait. What is going on? Oh, sorry. I forgot about this. In the sample file, we should remove that, the use thingy. So remove that from the sample. We just leave the extends migration. So if I go to pages, I have to remove that. So let's try to run that again. Let's do that, and voila, the table was created successfully. That is nice. Okay, so that has made our work easier. Now there's one more thing we need to do, is to roll back a migration, right? So let's go to Thunder, where we delete all the tables we don't want. So if I go back to Thunder here, there's a list, but there's where is this? There's make migration, there's migrate. So when it's just migrate like this, there is a mode. So if the mode is empty, wait a minute. Okay, so if the mode is migrate, this is the mode we got. So we do this. But if it's migrate roll back, is that how we do it here? Let's see. Yeah, there's migrate, refresh, there's migrate, and then there's migrate rollback. Okay, goody. Now refresh, what it does is it just locates, does a rollback followed by a latest to refresh the current state. I don't think we can do a refresh, because normally what happens is with other frameworks is when they run a migration, they save that information in the database so they can know which migration were run and which ones were not. But we're not going to do that because that just adds levels of complexity I don't want to deal with. So what I'm going to do here is just check the mode to see what's going on. Migrate, rollback, all of this is okay up to this point where I'm running this. Okay, so I don't need this as the migrate function, do I? Here we're supposed to say migration file could not be found, something like that. Okay, so at this point, let me do this. Depending on what mode we're in, so let me do a switch here again. So we're gonna do mode like this. The default is up, I guess, and here when it's migrate, it just migrates. We'll put up there, but there are two more. We can't roll back actually, so there's just migrate. We can roll back actually. We can also refresh using the same logic, so I will leave it there like that. Yeah, so if it's just a migration like migrate, we create. Rollback is where we go down. We say remove this. We run the down function instead. So in the down function here, whatever posts were created here can be deleted. So back here. And then in the refresh, what we are doing is we're just down and then up again. That's all we are doing. So we are deleting a table and then creating it again. Yeah. So that's the refresh there. So let me change this description here. Runs the down method for a migration in a specific oh, there's no plugins in here, right? This reminds me, I'm gonna do, there's another MVC MVC framework that I created which runs on plugins. Very interesting as well. I'm gonna make tutorials on that as well. Yeah, this is where this data comes from. So let's see, method for migration. For a migration file. Yep. Okay. So let me copy this and let's put it on the refresh here so it's very locates and runs a migration file. Let's do that here as well. Okay. Retrieve information on selected table. Okay. Drop delete database. Great. Runs down and then up. Okay, so that describes things a bit better. Great. So let's test these guys here. So I'm going to copy the pages thing. And here I'm going to say PHP Thunder. And I'm going to say migrate, roll back, and then put the file name there. Now, when this, you say migration file runs successfully, I think we need more information here. I'm gonna grab this. Wait a minute, is there any other information here? Migrate. Okay, let's put echo here. Instead of migration file, we say tables created successfully, maybe, I don't know. Anyway, it's up to you what messaging you want to do here. Tables removed. Tables refreshed, because you can do multiple tables in this one thing. Alright, let me just put some space between these and the break. I'll leave it out there. Okay, so rollback here, which means we want to delete the pages table. So if I press enter, table pages successfully removed. Okay, let's check that out if this is true. If I go to my thing here, and you can see it's actually gone. So now I can list migration files again. PHP Thunder list migrations. Then I can delete this table as well. So copy that and then do PHP Thunder migrate rollback, and let's put that file, and the table was removed. So now you don't have to deal with PHP My Admin when you're doing this. You can just put, and then the advantage is you can have several versions of this, because right now I do have a users or a posts migration. If I create another one, it will be a different file because the date and time are completely different. So I can have like 10 posts migrations, each one with a specific date. Then whenever I want to go back to a version, an earlier version I had of the posts table, I can simply run that migration file, and voila, I'll have that table up and running. Maybe it was a beta version and I messed up with the new version, then I can just replace things like that. All right, so I think we're doing great. Let's look at this sample here just to make sure that things are good. Nothing out of the ordinary. That's great. All right, so I think that does it for this particular update. At least now we can create migrations, we can crop images, which is awesome. Now what I want to do is for us to create projects with this MVC platform, lots and lots of projects. That way we can see all kinds of scenarios on how we can use it, and then if we find any more problems, then we can do another update just to keep it up to date and make sure it runs smoothly. All right, so of course the link will be in the description to this MVC framework right here. Hopefully you've learned something new, and I will see you in the next tutorial.